About 15 years ago, I met Folu doing something very similar to what she's doing now. And in fact, there is a photograph to show for it. And this is a photograph. This is a photograph of a little girl, then called Folu, and a much younger, nice-looking guy called Yemi Osinbajo. That is 15 years, all of 15 years ago. And of course, in that picture also is Dr. Beko Ransom-Kuti. But I want to thank all of you who are here, the Honourable Minister for Information and Culture, July Mohammed, the Acting Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Ibrahim Mahi, the Project Coordinator of the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, Mr. Glenn Pritchard, and the Consul General of the Federal Republic of Germany, Mr. Ingo Herbert, and the Creative Youth Initiative Against Corruption, CYIAC, Goodwill Ambassador, Bimbo Akintola, President of the Women Arise for Change Initiative, and also a long-running, always in the battle, many, many years, Dr. Joe Okei-Odumakin, and of course the Project Director and Founder of the Creative Youth Initiative Against Corruption, Folu Michael. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for making the time to attend this event. I want to say that first, this event to mark the International Anti-Corruption Day 2017 is very special. Creative Youth Initiative Against Corruption and the launch of the Corruption Busters, an educational movie series. I think it was Dr. Joe Okei-Odumakin who said that, who repeated that expression, if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us. And I want to say that, of course, the President is also noted to have said that and very often quoted. But I want to say that this is not just a clever, it's not just a clever turn of phrase, it's not just a clever expression that if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us. It is the recognition of a terrible reality, a very terrible reality, that if we don't do something about corruption, it will certainly wipe out not just the present, but more frighteningly, the future. And of course, many of us are familiar with the facts that we have. Just to give a few examples, and I think July Mohammed had given some of those facts that show us that what we have lost in corruption could have built this society several times over. But in more recent years, I'm sure many of us are familiar with some of what we've learned about the defense contract scams that those defense contracts that were given out in what was supposed to be in answer to the Boko Haram insurgency. And we are unable to account for sums in excess of several billions. Some estimate about $15 billion US. About 3 weeks to the elections, last 2015 elections, $289 million was released in cash, and 100 billion naira was also released in cash. None of that, of course, was ever accounted for, and we're still on the trail of that kind of money. Now, just to get a sense for the enormity of the size of this money, if you look at a state like Ebonyi State, or perhaps a state like Osun State, either of those states don't get as much as 200 billion a year, the entire year. So if somebody just made away with 100 billion in cash in a couple of days, you can imagine. That is what a whole state, several millions, 3 million, in some cases 4 million, in some cases 5 million people, would have had to, would have needed to do something for themselves. Or a group of people can just make away with all of that. If you look at why Nigeria got into a recession towards the end of 2015, 3 very quick reasons. The first, of course, is that oil prices crashed. Second is that oil production crashed also because of the militancy in the Niger Delta, and we're losing about 1 million barrels of oil a day. But perhaps more importantly was what we lost in terms of what people had stolen, because that was more than half of what was then our external reserves. Our external reserves stood then at about $28 million. But what we had lost from just corrupt activity was well in excess of $18 million. That's almost half of the entire reserves of the country. There's no nation on the face of the earth that can survive that kind of onslaught of corruption against its resources. It's not possible. And this is why it's so important for us to understand that corruption for us is an existential problem. It's one that would kill us if we don't fight it very hard indeed. What I'd like to say also is, how do you fight corruption? I think it was the chairman of the FCC, Mr. Magu, who said that you need the will, you need the political will, strong political will. And he's also confirmed that that political will is not lacking. But we also need crusaders. We need men and women who are committed to fighting corruption. And it's not enough to be committed, as it were, by word of mouth. It's very important that we find people who are so committed to it that they are ready to give up a lot of convenience just to make sure that they are involved in this fight. People like Ibrahim Magu, Nuhu Ribadu, are examples of Nigerians who we can say are crusaders against corruption. And these are, let me say that these are individuals that I've been associated with for several years, I mean, I've known Ibrahim Magu for many, many years, and also Nuhu Ribadu years, when the EFCC was started and all that. And we worked together a great deal, training investigators, talking about what to do and how to do it and all of that. And many of them have remained through the years consistent in their commitment to seeing that this country is rid of corruption. And you need that kind of crusading zeal to be able to do anything about corruption. Because really, I mean, when you're dealing with a society where the institutions themselves, and several of those who occupy the institutions, are ready to give a fight to anyone who wants to fight against corruption, then you need people who are crusaders. You need people who are able to say, I don't care what happens to me, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to make sure that we succeed. So I want, so always, I think that one of the very important resources we need, and I'm talking to young people today, is that we need people who are zealous about this fight against corruption, people who are really zealous. But the other point is that the easiest part of this, of the fight against corruption, is arresting people and putting them on trial. That, frankly, is the easiest part. The more difficult part is reforming the institutions that have been corrupted. Because our society has experienced for years what experts will describe as systemic corruption. That is to say that corruption is not just the exception, it is the rule. Proper behavior, good governance is the exception. So because you've had corrupted institutions for so many years, one of the biggest problems that we have is how to fight that, how to ensure that we fight and reform the systems. And when I say the institutions and systems, I'm talking about the judiciary, the police, the civil service, the public service system. Those institutions themselves have been corrupted through the years. So you find that it is it's sometimes difficult even to process cases from investigation to trial and to conviction of suspects because the institutions themselves are corrupted. So we must recognize that it's a very difficult thing indeed, but it takes being focused, it takes being committed. And that's why I'm so excited to see so many young people here today who I hope will, like Folu, who so many years ago decided that she was going to do something about good governance, even when she was so young that, it almost seemed like a joke then. But here she is today, still giving it such a good fight. One is not naive about the massive problems of fighting corruption, but the fear I've always had is not about what it will take to fight corruption. My fear has always been that somehow, somewhere along the line, we may lose our outrage, we may lose our sense of outrage, we may lose what it is that causes other people in other parts of the world to say, no, we're not going to accept this. We may lose it because as time goes on, one campaign against corruption after the other, things seem to be moving so slowly that sometimes you have to ask yourself, will this ever work? Will one day, will we ever be able to do this? And it's not helped by the fact that time and time again, you hear shameless noises from the people who got us to where we are, saying that they want to come back into power. Shameless, completely shameless. But that's the way of corruption all over the world. People empower themselves, they get the resources to be able to keep fighting, and they come back. They come back because everybody else is disempowered. But they have stolen so much, and they've hidden so much that they've stolen, that every time, every election cycle, they're able to fight and fight hard again. So that for me is the biggest fear, that we may somewhere along the line lose our outrage. But I'm greatly encouraged by what I see today and by the sorts of things that people like Folu are doing, that maybe we're not going to ever lose our outrage. I started working on various efforts against corruption in about 1990 with an organization called Integrity, which, by the way, is still in existence, an anti-corruption organization, which is still in existence to this very day. And I haven't lost my zeal in any way, and I believe that all of us who are here must develop some zeal, some anger about the fact that some people will just can corner all of the resources of the nation, the public resources that are meant for the benefit of this generation and even the future generation. And, nothing happens to them. But I'm very convinced that we will come together, working together, especially with all of you young people who are here. Working together, we can do incredible things. So I'm certainly looking forward to working with you. I'm looking forward to, and I'm glad that we've been able to reconnect, and there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot, I think, that can come from all of you who are here, who are prepared to join in this effort to rid our country of corruption. I was really pleased to see what Adegboyega had to say, that sometimes it's not always just about public sector corruption or grand corruption. It's about people who are cheating in exams. It's also about people who are doing all sorts of other things that, demonstrate a lack of integrity and undermine goodness, undermine forthrightness, undermine honesty and integrity. And I think that all of us have a duty to fight hard against everything that demeans our society, against everything that makes our society one that people look at and scorn and just scorn us. I think it's time for us to really examine and re-examine ourselves and come up with something with the kind of effort that can really and truly change our society for good. So I'd like to thank you again for the time and attention that you pay to all of this. I'm told you've been here practically all afternoon, but it's all worth it. I'm sure that our country one day will be extremely proud of all of the work that you started to do and which you will do. Thank you very much.